Hey everybody, my name is Ben Lawley and I work for Young Life here in Llano County. I'm married to a beautiful woman named Rachel Lawley, who is a third grade science and social studies teacher at Llano Elementary. And my friend Craig asked me to make this video and kind of speak into our move to Llano because we moved here in August and just the journey of becoming married and starting new jobs and how coronavirus has impacted that, but also how we've sought Jesus in that. And so to start, I'm going to read from a book out of the Bible. This book is titled James, and I'm going to read out of chapter 1, verses 2 through 3, okay? And so this passage, before I even start, is one that is really key in all the things I just mentioned, right? In the last 6, 7, 8 months, even 12 months. But even more so, dating back to when I first became a Christian, this passage is something that I can recall looking back on and it being convicting as well as inspiring, just in chasing after Jesus. And so, James 1, 2 through 3 say this. It says, Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. Oh, and verse 4. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. And so I love this for a couple of reasons. And number one being, in verse 2 when it says, when troubles of any kind, and I've highlighted any kind, you can think of any sort of trouble, right? Minor trouble, major trouble, any sort of trouble, whenever it comes your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. It's not saying to have great joy, but consider it an opportunity to have great joy because you know that when your faith is tested, right, when there is something that is a test in your life, when there is something that is a complication in your life, your endurance for the Lord, right? You're running this race for the Lord, has a chance to grow. And so um, I think back to when we got engaged. So we got engaged on March 12th, 2020. And if that date doesn't ring a bell to you, it should, because March 12th is the day that we found out Tom Hanks had coronavirus. March 12th is the day that the NBA canceled mid game for some teams. And March 12th really is the signal date for the introduction of the coronavirus pandemic in the United States. And so, a really big day. When I think back on it retrospectively, it's pretty hysterical to think that that is the day that I chose 6 months prior to ask my now wife to marry me, right? Like, what kind of timing is that? And so, I could have never seen the things that were going to take place when I decided to ask Rachel to marry me on March 12th, 2020. But those things happen, right? And so many complications came from that. You can think on so many different levels. Just graduating college, right? Her finishing up her last year at Lorena, where she was teaching prior. Just all those complications that pretty much everybody that's probably watching this had to deal with as well. And then you think about planning a wedding, right? How do you plan a wedding in the midst of COVID? And planning a wedding that started literally with the introduction of COVID, right? Like there wasn't even a day in our engagement where COVID wasn't a thought. And then you think about moving to a new town and trying to connect in a church and trying to connect in a community and trying to do well in each of our respective jobs in the midst of a very unique, very different, and very challenging for people that have lived in certain areas for decades time, right? Like this is just a challenging time. And to move and to start and to get married in the midst of all of those things creates a lot of complications, right? And so looking back at this verse or these verses, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy, right? A good friend of mine once used this illustration of a roller coaster, right? There's two types of people when you boil it down to the absolute bare minimum, and there's one person who is terrified of roller coasters, right? They're like, I'm not getting on it. I'm terrified of it, and I just no way. Like my knees are already shaking thinking about it. There's no way. And then there's people that love it but are still scared by it, right? Like they love to get on the roller coaster, because they love the fact that they're scared by it, but they're going to stay safe, right? Like we know as we get on this roller coaster that there's a really, 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 really good chance that you're going to get from point A to point B and be okay. And this good friend of mine uses this illustration to describe what life with Jesus is like, right? When you think about becoming a Christian and just what that really means, it doesn't mean that your life is going to be great. In fact, you could argue that it's going to be a lot harder. And the truth of that is that that's okay, right? Because we know what the end goal will be, right? It describes or uses the word endurance, right? Like we're running this race all the way till the end of our lives here on earth to go spend eternity with Him. And so you think about that person that's terrified of roller coasters and why they don't want to ride them. And the truth is, they're scared that something's going to go wrong, right? They're scared that the machine's not going to work, that they're not going to get from point A to point B safely, and that it's just going to be terrible. They don't want any part of it, right? But the person that loves to ride the roller coaster because they know, even though in the midst of them being scared, or if we relate this back to the Bible, a trouble, right? They know that they can consider it great joy because they know what the end result will be. And so you think about life with Jesus and how freeing it is to know that I know what the end goal is. And so, in the midst of all of these things that have been complicated and just messy and not the way that all of us thought they would be, it's really, 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 really a great thing to be able to know that at the end of this race, I know what the ending will be. And so, when I think about my journey in the last 12 months, I can't help but think about that roller coaster that is life on earth in this fallen world and what that ride can look like through the power of Jesus. And I think that, like it says in James, we should consider those challenges great joy. And so that's all I've got. I hope that this was what you're wanting, Craig. And I hope that what I said made sense. So thanks for watching me talk to what is actually my desktop. So y'all have a great day. Bye.